I'm Pat Summerall with exciting highlights of the last football season brought to you by the United States Army and the National Football League. We're going to give you a close-up look at some of the teams, some of the players, and some of the plays that kept millions of fans glued to their TV sets. You're going to see what makes football the great game it is, with superb individual effort, teamwork, and spontaneous action, plus the ability to spot the breaks and take advantage of them. So make yourself comfortable, and let's go to the game.
The spirit of St. Louis is framed in a majestic silver arch, a monument to the city's pride in its identity as gateway to the West. Intertwined with this identity is another symbol of pride which stands not far from the arch, Bush Memorial Stadium, home of a football team which also has its place in the spirit of St. Louis. The story of the 1972 St. Louis Cardinals begins far from the arch, in the tiny college community of Lake Forest, Illinois. It is here in summer camp that a team is formed and positions are won and lost. Quarterback Tim Van Gelder, number 16, came to Lake Forest with a persistent belief in himself, which had carried him through 4 unsuccessful tryouts. But this time, as camp faded into preseason, Van Gelder had earned a chance to prove himself. That chance came in the Cardinal Glennon benefit game, with the Big Red trailing the Denver Broncos 13-0. Van Gelder made good on his opportunity by throwing for 2 touchdowns. He led St. Louis over Denver 17-13, and after 4 years on the taxi squad, he had not only made the team, he would open the season as number 1 quarterback.
In my job, I fly a lot of American tourists to Europe. But you know, they always have one complaint. They wish they could spend more time there. But this time, my passengers won't have that complaint, because they're going to spend a full 16 months in Europe. They with the United States Army. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. And they taken advantage of the Army's brand new European enlistment option.
If you enlist now for 3 years in armor, artillery, or infantry, and successfully complete a 4-month training program, you're off to Europe for at least 16 months. See your nearest Army representative for further information about a complete tour of duty under the new European enlistment option. If you'd like to see Europe as few tourists do, today's Army wants to join you. Call 800-243-6000 toll-free for your nearest Army representative.
Baltimore's Memorial Stadium was the setting as the Big Red's 28-year-old rookie ran out to face the Baltimore Colts. Donnie Anderson careened in for the only TD St. Louis would need. Van Gelder now could celebrate his first pro success, but not without some help from the defense. St. Louis defense was sharp, especially number 53, Jamie Rivers, and number 56, Mike McGill. McGill and Rivers split time at middle linebacker and helped hold the Colts without a touchdown. The Colts were humbled 10-3, but the Cardinal glow didn't last long. The next week in Washington, Van Gelder saw a different side of the NFL in an ambush by the over-the-hill gang. The Cardinals fell to the Redskins 24-10. And the next week in St. Louis, Pittsburgh's Resurgence Steelers taught Van Gelder an even more painful lesson. Dazed, number 16 left the game, and hopeful number 15 entered it. But Gary Quazzo also failed to produce the key to offensive consistency as St. Louis lost its second straight. But in defeat, there was promise. The St. Louis special teams poured in and almost turned the game around. An alert Norm Thompson cashed in on the kind of special team hustle that set the standard for Cardinal bomb squads in 1972. Special team play does not require finesse, only gut pride. A determination to sift through a sea of swirling bodies, seek out the ball, and sacrifice your body for that one wide-open shot. Even kicker Jim Bakken, number 25, took part. And when St. Louis traveled to Minnesota for a meeting with the mighty Vikings, it was Cardinal special teams that set the tempo. This time, ex-Viking Gary Quazzo was on target as he found number 1 draft choice Bobby Moore for 2 touchdowns. The 1917 victory provided the Cardinals with their second upset win of the season. But even in victory, ominous signs were beginning to cloud the horizon. Mike McGill intercepted another pass but damaged his knee in the process. Jamie Rivers had sustained a knee injury earlier. Both would be lost for the remainder of the season. Even more depressing was the Cardinals' inability to win at home. They had not won in St. Louis since the second week of 1971, and Quazzo's Minnesota success faded quickly in the face of the rampaging Redskins. Washington furthered the Busch Stadium jinx 33-3, and St. Louis returned to the road. St. Louis now turned to a third quarterback, number 17, Jim Hart, in a must game with interdivision rival New York. In the first half, Hart appeared to be the answer as he probed the giant zone with shots to his running backs and cut through an aggressive New York pass rush with perfectly timed screens. Continuing the pattern, Hart sent Donnie Anderson out of the backfield to pick up a touchdown. Hart's control was masterful, and John Rowland scored twice on short leaps to give St. Louis a 21-7 halftime lead. While the Cards celebrated, New York fans called for defense. Then suddenly the Cardinals' well-structured game plan crumbled. Hart's debut was ruined as the Giants came back to win 28-21. While the offense struggled, the Cardinal defense stayed together, silently fighting off the frustration of defeat. But sometimes a defender can use frustration to his own advantage by letting it turn to anger. The St. Louis Cardinal defense became 11 angry men, turning their frustration inward, only to let it pour out again in the form of all-out aggression. Front line, number 75, Bob Rowe, was the one rock of consistency. Rowe was solid all year, and he got help from young Ron Jankowski, number 78, and the veteran Don Brum, number 86. Actually, the Big Red shared a common cause, for no matter which 11 defenders happened to be on the field, they all came ready for some hardcore hitting. 11 stickers, all eager for a piece of the action, adds up to gang tackling. Gang tackling was a Big Red specialty in 1972. The Cardinals hit hard, but the Cardinals still suffered. Defeat saps a man's strength, pulls at his spirit, works against his will to go on. While effort was ever present, the rewards of victory were not. So a struggling team looked to its old pros to lead the way out. Tight end Jackie Smith, running back John Rowland, and offensive tackle Ernie McMillan. McMillan has been a Cardinal leader in 160 consecutive games, and he sought to unify the inexperienced offensive line. Rowland entered the year as a substitute, but put together his finest season since 1968. Rowland emerged as the Cardinals' all-time leading rusher, and Jackie Smith took every opportunity to add to his all-time St. Louis receiving record. McMillan, Rowland, and Smith, proven pros to turn the season around and encourage youthful potential like number 85, Mel Gray. Gray is a small man whose lightning quickness causes opponents special problems every time he touches the ball. Because of injuries, Gray found less freedom in his second pro season, but he added his potential to the most promising young wide receiver corps in the league. His fellows include number 28, Bobby Moore, and number 84, Walker Gillette. Gillette is a rangy third-year man, rich in loose-limbed grace. But after 2 years on San Diego's bench, Gillette still had a lot to learn about the NFL facts of life. In the wicked hitting that goes on over the middle, a receiver must be willing to hold his own and catch in a crowd. While Gillette added toughness to his talent, Moore had to harness some exceptional natural skills. Size, speed, and quickness, with a dash of unpredictability. The pressures that go with starting as a rookie will destroy the confidence of some, but Moore kept getting better week by week. Actually, the task is quite simple. Just deliver the ball and watch him work. Gillette and Moore polished their individual skills, but still the passing game sputtered, while the St. Louis quarterback sweepstakes continued. Tim Van Gelder went from preseason surprise to opening season hero to midseason disappointment. After 9 weeks, the bubble had burst, and Van Gelder was back on the taxi squad. For his part, Gary Quazzo was unable to recapture the effectiveness of his early season triumph in Minnesota. While St. Louis suffered through its changes, Jim Hart silently waited for another chance. Finally, the process of elimination prevailed. This time, Jim Hart was ready. Timing is what makes a passing attack go, and Hart finally began to establish this crucial element with Moore and Gillette. Timing which would be used to restore order to a season which was rapidly slipping away.
you're getting a little tired of squeezing yourself into tiny cars with tiny engines, the time has come to start thinking big. Better yet, think enormous. Like 27 feet long, 12 feet wide, 52.5 tons loaded. Power? A 750-horse, 12-cylinder air-cooled engine and cross-drive transmission are standard equipment. Gas mileage, at 3 gallons to the mile, it's not one of our best-selling features. Parking? Who's going to fight you for a spot? Choice of color. It only comes in one, but it does have a sunroof. If you've got the bug to move to something bigger, today's Army wants to join you. Call 800-243-6000 toll-free for your nearest Army representative.
As the 13th Sunday of the 1972 season dawned, the Busch Stadium jinx had stretched to 10 winless games over 2 years. But the Los Angeles Rams soon discovered the potency of Hart's new rapport with his young receivers. The spectacular Hart-to-Moore connection was worth 98 yards before a desperation tackle put it into the record books as the longest non-scoring play in NFL history. Next, Hart and Gillette demonstrated the essence of quarterback-receiver timing. While Hart gunned the long, dormant offense back to life, 11 angry men of the Big Red defense were at the top of their game. The Rams had arrived in St. Louis still in contention for their divisional title. But the Cardinals smashed their hopes, along with the Busch Stadium jinx, in a 24-14 triumph. The victory was clinched on a last-minute goal line stand. Fittingly, it was a Cardinal wearing number 8 who put on the final stopper. Number 8, a living legend named Larry Wilson. In 1960, a country boy from Rigby, Wilson entered the 1972 season as a consummate professional. The guile of 13 years had been added, but old Wildcat would still hit you like nobody else. The courage was still there, and also the interception saved the opening day win at Baltimore. But 13 years can also erode the physical being of a small man in a large man's game. 13 years of pro football Larry Wilson style. 13 years of collision. 13 years of pride and integrity that had to end the same way. And so, although he could still play the game better than most, the country boy from Rigby, Idaho, did another courageous thing. He decided that the 1972 season would be his last. This is the rugged face of past glory. Now, there is another face of future promise. Don Coryell brings to St. Louis a proud tradition. In 12 years at San Diego State, his teams won an incredible total of 104 games. But Coryell brings more than college victories to St. Louis. His credo is attack the defense. This theory produced one of the most prolific passing offenses in collegiate history. And the sophistication of his method prepared his players well. 58 have been drafted by the NFL. Now, Don Coryell will shape the Big Red destiny by blending his philosophy of attack with the spirit of St. Louis. A promising blend of new and old. Hopefully, a mixture that will produce a winner in 1973.
When you see a game on TV or at the stadium, you see professional athletes being professionals. But you don't see the sweat and the bruises in training, the self-discipline and the motivation that go into making a team that can press on right to the end. You have to get it all together in any worthwhile effort, sports, business, or the United States Army. This is Pat Summerall saying so long for the United States Army and the National Football League, and thanks for the opportunity of bringing you this program.